creative transformation, I want to just kick off by explaining what that actually means. Obviously, we've talked a lot about digital transformation, certainly over the last couple of years, the pandemic and what that's meant. I'm actually out of breath, I'm so unfit. What that's meant for brands, for agencies, the entire ecosystem, and creative is forming a fundamental part of that. And so creative transformation feels like it sits within digital transformation as a finally getting the reckoning and finally getting the recognition that it actually deserves. So I want to kind of delve into that in more detail and look at where we are in the creative landscape. So let's start with introductions. Ronnie, I'll come to you first.
Hi, I'm Ronnie. I'm the head of strategy at TBWA Singapore. I share that role with another person who is an experienced creative strategist. I'm a media strategist. So this is TBWA putting its money where its mouth is to do exactly that, which is combining media, data, technology, and actually create better for the modern world. Yeah.
Thank you. And you've just been promoted, haven't you?
Yes.
Congratulations. Bishoy.
Hi, I'm Bishoy. So I'm a chief revenue and business officer at Dailymotion. Dailymotion is a global video platform that connects premium publishers with engaged audience and also brands through a reach of 350 million uniques. And I'm based in New York and very happy to be with you here in Singapore today.
That's a long way to come. Thank you for traveling so far. And finally, Judson.
Hi, I'm Judson, head of marketing for new verticals in Foodpanda under Delivery Hero Asia. So yeah, I look after a few of the newer verticals in Foodpanda. We are mainly known for food delivery in Singapore, but we also sell groceries. We also have courier parcel delivery, stuff like that. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you very much. And I want to kick off by asking the three of you what we mean by creativity. It's a big, loaded question, but kind of where are we at with creativity as it pertains to consumption, as it pertains to the massive population explosion that we've experienced in this region, and how people are consuming creative across the different channels. Ronnie, because you're sitting right next to me, I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
All right, so I'm going to try and break it down into two things. What is creativity? And I think probably the second one is what does it look like, potentially? Yeah, so we're in an industry that, we can talk it up as much as we want, but at the end of the day, we are selling product. So in that sort of context, we try to fool ourselves about what creativity is, or it's art and it's beautiful stuff. But no, I think creativity is essentially anything that gets you remembered in more purchase moments more often, right? And that definition itself has had to change because of the ecosystem, right? You've gone from broadcast to, very one-device digital to now just an explosion of different devices and different ways of consuming. So how creativity has had to manifest itself to get you remembered in more purchase moments more often has had to change, right? I think right now we're in a situation where that ecosystem that is in front of us is driven by a lot of choice, right? Consumers have choice. They can choose to scroll past you, skip you, not look at you if they wanted. And then you also have, I think, a lot more parity in the market, right? So creativity now has to deal with, to get remembered, the big currency right now is how do you get a bit more attention, right? So anything that grabs attention nowadays to get you remembered, I think, is where creativity is starting to move towards. And I think creative agencies should be driving that a lot more. But I think if you look at the marketplace, it's really a bit more media agency driven, where it ends up in trading, where you have the attention CPM, pay more, or you've got your platforms who talk about move your brand up front, move your key message up front. But that's fundamentally band-aids to a very, I would say, negative view of the fact that you can't win attention, but you can, right? So that's essentially what I think what creativity is going to start looking like in the context of being remembered. And I think creative agencies they need to be on that, sort of leading that journey. And I think the first thing is combining data, tech, media, and sitting with creative. So that's sort of a broadish answer to.
I mean, that's good because that's what we want to talk about. So actually, at least I've chosen the right panel discussion. But I mean, that we'll delve into that in more detail in terms of what that looks like. But Judson, coming to you, Ronnie just talked about impact and how you need attention. You guys are responsible for some pretty impactful ads. The giant pink billboard by Raffles Place, when you go past it, it flashes pink. I did go and see it as per recommendation. It's awesome. What does creativity mean for Foodpanda? Your consumers are kind of seeing you across many different platforms, different devices. What does creativity mean in that context?
Yeah, actually, the central tenet for creativity to me is to be useful to consumers, right? Because we do food delivery and we do grocery deliveries and stuff like that. And every single day we push out all the different EDMs telling you to buy this vegetable because it's like 150 and it's 20% off. But why should I buy from you? Because I can go to other competitors. So how we usually do it, the new way of doing it is that buy this broccoli from us because we teach you how to use this broccoli and meal prep your way for the rest of the weekday, for the rest of the week. And so being useful is a very important thing. Even though we are digital first, we do explore a lot of offline formats. And as what Ronnie said, right, it's meant to be, you need to connect with the audience, you need to make them remember us. So we don't just, restrict ourselves to digital platforms, like what you mentioned, the out-of-home at Raffles Place. We've also done food trucks before, and last month was Singapore's National Day, and for the very first time, we pushed out a National Day goodie bag, which usually, if Singaporeans here would know, we usually get it from the government every single National Day, and so we try to disrupt the whole thing by giving out a Food Panda National Day goodie bag, and in these things, in this bag, are things that are useful for you when you go for your National Day parade and shows. So creativity to me is more about formats, one, and two, being able to be useful to your consumers. Yeah.
Useful, I would say almost a bit of like surprise and delight to your consumers as well, because it's the unexpected almost. They wouldn't have thought that you'd be giving out these goodie bags to them.
They didn't expect it.
No, absolutely. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And Bisha, I want to come to you on this question as well. You just mentioned that Dailymotion have huge reach. When people think of video platforms, they would just think of, it's just a boring old in-stream before or during a video. Kind of, what does creativity mean to your consumers, and kind of how you adopt that and create an engaging experience that doesn't detract from the content they're trying to consume?
Yeah, so I would start by saying that there's a Nielsen study that says that 2/3 of media effectiveness is driven by the creative. So creative is key in the whole process. And as a video platform, we see, as you said, creative ads and in-stream ads every day, everywhere. And it's true that what we have seen is that the creative unit can really help drive attention, as Ronnie has said, and attention is becoming the real KPI that the brands are using when they deliver upper funnel campaigns. And that attention, we did a test by looking at using eye tracking technology, and as a user, specifically on mobile, I would say it's very hard to capture the user attention. You have very limited time to be able to capture user attention. So we did a test and looking with eye tracking technology at taking a regular spot and looking at how it will work, and we see that immediately the user's eyes will go directly on where to skip. They're just looking on where and when the skip button will be actually working, so they can click on it. And
we can probably all agree with that in the room. Yeah, we've all done that.
Yes, and we took the same spot and we added some features. We added a small advert game inside the in-stream ad, and we saw immediately that the user attention and the eyes of the users went into different parts of the creative. So we can say that yes, creative really helps drive attention and really change the user perception and focus when they're looking and watching an ad.
And so, a chicken or egg question: what comes first, or what should come first? Is it changing, data or creative?
So it's a great question, and I would say both. Actually, we use data signals to be able to deliver the right ad and specifically contextual segments. We have millions of videos on the platform, and we look at the signals of those videos, the images, the audio, the text, and the elements around the video to be able to create topics. And we try to leverage those topics into our ad decisioning systems to send signals to the specific brands when they advertise, so they can adapt their messaging when delivering campaigns on Dailymotion.
Brilliant, Ronnie.
I was going to add on, it's a bit chicken and egg, but if you look at the mechanism of attention, and there's some really great work done by Amplified Intelligence out of Australia. I love how they sort of talk about attention. The human brain being a prediction machine. It's always constantly trying to predict what's happening next. What am I going to look at here? What am I going to be exposed to? So when it comes to the skip version, the moment it fits a predictive pattern of what your brain's is expecting, people immediately go down to, I know what this is. My brain's shutting down. I'm going to switch. I'm going to skip. So there's a lot of data in terms of how can you start to understand what is that predictive pattern, right? What do people expect to see in this context, in this format, in this channel, for this brand, for this category, and creatively then go, well, part of the creative brief is break that pattern, right? And that could come through elements. So it's very interesting you said you added some elements. It was probably unexpected to, the kind of video people were expecting, and that just immediately kicks the brain back into action to go, please pay attention, because that's broken what I'm predicting. So there's something about data being used in a different way to start to tell people this is what the norms are, the tropes are, break it, right?
That's very interesting, and it ties in with the whole surprise and delight thing we were talking about earlier, and actually using data in that regard is very interesting. Judson, from your perspective, what role is data playing in your decision to do goodie bags for National Day, for example?
Yeah, so every single day we have a lot of data signals, and for our business, we look at purchase pattern by the hour, because when it comes to food, we all have different relationships with food, right? Some of us, we just buy alcohol at midnight. Some of us, we buy our breakfast, and that's it. We are done with Foodpanda, right? So when you look at by the hour and like 24 hours, therefore 24 different general segments, they all behave very differently. Some of them ignore my push notifications no matter how much I send them. Some of them open all my emails, interestingly. So therefore, with all these different segments, I understand how I communicate with them digitally, and therefore I can insert the different kind of creatives that will make them want to buy from us. Because when we do longitudinal analysis, cohort analysis, and stuff like that, we can understand people who buy breakfast, and within that, people who buy eggs from us, people who buy bread from us, what exactly are the kind of creatives that will make them want to purchase. Yeah, so it's very granular.
And you have an interesting back and forth with your competitors in terms of how you promote stuff and kind of what that looks like. So how do you then use data to understand, what you might do one week, what Shopee might do the next week, or Grab might do the other week, or depending on what part of the business it is. How do you use data to inform that and affect that?
So the back and forth I think it's inevitable in Singapore because it's highly competitive. So if competitor A does one thing and then we do it, very often it's really very reactive. And so the challenge is that in all these reactions, how do we get the desired reaction from our consumers, right? And so the age-old KPIs of, am I selling more today? Am I clicking through more today? Those are my basis. But in the midst of all these chaos, right, we will start to understand that all these back and forth is not really efficient in terms of reaching out to consumers meaningfully, because it's really just putting money in, and then I fire an arrow and then you fire back at me. So then we start to understand that maybe we don't really need to go back and forth with them. Maybe we just take a step back. You have the stage for a bit, and then I'll come back with a more well thought out plan. And all these are really just informed by the data that we have from the 24 different segments that we have, and how they respond to all the back and forth.
Not, of course, insinuating that they haven't got well thought out plans.
They have.
Yeah,
and we have too.
Of course, just better thought out plans.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to we've touched upon it. We touched upon attention. I want to talk about measurement in more detail and understand. Creativity and creative seems to historically has kind of just been like bypassed measurement, and measurement has looked in different types of metrics. And Ronnie, you mentioned, from the media planner perspective versus a creative strategist perspective, media planners want certain KPIs, want certain things. They don't often include the creative aspect of that. And I want to understand how you can include creative in measurement, in understanding attention, and actually understanding how you can optimize the creative as well.
Well, I mean, I think the previous session, there was a whole bunch of things around, the amount of optimization that happens. And I think that complexity that's sort of set in has almost shifted the entire conversation towards, well, that should be the metrics we're judging everything on. But that's the metrics for a very specific kind of objective, right? So I think...
and it's just one more layer to add to...
one more layer.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the way I tend to look at it is, what are you trying to achieve, right? So you've got the briefs and the challenges which are purely about message comprehension. Do people take away a message? You've got the briefs that are about, get people to remember you. so that you're salient across the year, and then you've got the briefs, which are literally download, download, download. I feel like a lot of you're sort of stuck with a bit of legacy in terms of how things are measured, which is your sort of your link testing, your red, yellow, green sort of way of judging creative, which is very much in these. A lot of it is also about message comprehension, which is built in a world where people weren't searching, right? So your ad had to do a lot of work in terms of delivering the information, delivering the emotion, delivering memorability. The world has shifted. People are searching now. An ad doesn't have to do everything. So you want to start moving towards testing, which is testing for the attentiveness that this ad gets, or the memorability, or the emotion that it delivers, and not just and almost sometimes take away the message comprehension bit, because you've got other channels to do that, right?
Yeah.
So we're sort of making this shift, or we have to make this shift from that sense of one ad, it's the be all and end all, everything has to happen in this one, the message has to land, emotion has to land, comprehension has to land, to a world which is more of this asset has to do this. Let's test it with the people who do that, right? And there's enough of vendors who actually do that. They test your attentiveness, they test your the emotional ability of the ad. You've got vendors who then test the other things about the message comprehension of the ad, and of course you've got your campaign metrics of are people clicking on it, are people skipping past it, etc. So it really is on a planner, media side, creative side, whichever side you're on, to understand what are you solving for. And I feel like the industry is going so fast with so many tools, with so many metrics, that people are just going straight into what are the campaign metrics I'm trying to solve for, which is usually your VTR, CTRs, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just about taking a step back and understanding what are we solving for, and what's the palette of assets and formats and channels that we can start to almost orchestrate across the world to make a message land, right? So not an answer, but it's a depends on.
It was an answer. I think it was a very good answer.
Yeah.
Bisho, I want to come to you on, you have your own creative studio at Dailymotion, right? So you work directly with brands, I'm assuming, to basically build creative for them. How do you navigate the delicate dance of what it is that the brand wants, what works, helping them to understand and educate them on that front, and then actually being able to communicate with them how it's performed and the creative importance in that performance, not just the context of the video, or, well, that's important too in creative, of course, but how does that work?
So I totally agree with Ronnie on that point, and the first thing is we ask them, because a lot of on video, a lot of it is like you just take your TV spot and you deliver it on digital. So we first ask them, and we engage in the conversation with them about what is that they're looking for in terms of outcome and output. And I agree with Ronnie on we have to stay back and move over the regular media KPIs of completion rate and viewability. And look a little bit more into like the engagement. The problem is engagement is there's no standard KPI for engagement. And so we give them access through the studio that we have. We give them access to a lot of data about where did the user watch the video ads, where did he drop, and when we actually leverage our own studio, we leverage all the data that we have collected through billions of impressions and thousands of campaigns about which ad will work with which industry, and really help them create those ad experiences. And I will give you a concrete example of a format or product that we created, which we call the Fast Impact, which is, as we know, as I said, like a lot of people just click on skip the button. And so as a platform and as a video player technology, we have the ability to actually play with that skip button. And during winter for a charity in Europe, we created a campaign where they gave us their TV spot, and they're like, can you please just deliver the TV spot and give us free impressions? And we said, of course, but let's try to actually, like, instead of just delivering it, give you a little bit more. And we played that skip button. It was a video showing, like, zooming in on a homeless in the middle of the street, a homeless person in the middle of the street, and there's a skip button after 5 seconds, and we let the people click on the skip button, but instead of when they clicked on the skip button, we showed immediately the end board, and we said, like, you can skip me in digital life, but in real life, like, please don't skip me. So we really
impactful.
have been exactly. So we leveraged like where the eyes of the user went to, and really tried to deliver that specific message that this charity wanted to deliver, and that really like what the studio helps us do.
Interesting, and I want to kind of go a bit more into creative technology or create tech. whatever, let's call it creative technology, I don't confuse people. But Judson, from your perspective, kind of how do you guys use technology to develop creative, using data to inform creative? I know that you guys, you mentioned earlier that you focus more on kind of offline media, potentially more than you do digital media, but obviously the creative part of that is still very, very important. And you obviously still do run digital media. Where do you create it yourself? Do you use agencies? Kind of what technology do you use, and what do you want to see happen? A lot of questions here. Hopefully you can understand the thread I'm going with here. What do you do right now? What do you want to see from Createch?
So we have an in-house agency that is based in Bangkok. The sheer amount of creation that we need to do on a monthly, weekly basis, and then the adjustments that we need to do to the creative because of market movements mandate that we need to have our own in-house agency. But we then rely on our media agency to tell us what channels are delivering results and what are not, and therefore optimize, and therefore we are able to respond very quickly. When it comes to Createch, not new, right? In my previous roles, we were exposed to some offerings from, let's say, YouTube, whereby we are able to just type a few keywords and then type your target audience, and then video ad is just generated, right? And then there are other platforms that allow you to generate a key visual within a few minutes. These are functional. They are effective for me as a brand, because then if I need to respond very fast, if my creative team are like sinking full of tickets, right, then I will just use those and just quickly respond. But if you're talking about creating the magic, putting out an ad that can make a person cry, laugh, hungry, for example, I think there's still a little bit of way to go with this Createch. Yeah, so in the future, the final frontier to me is AI and machine learning able to create something that is so emotive that the human doesn't need to do anything at all? Yeah.
Which actually ties in perfectly with what Peter was just saying from Quantcast about human-led technology and technology led by humans, and kind of where the future looks like. You'd like to get to a stage where actually AI is capable of creating creative without the human touch needed for the final finishing touches for the tears.
Yeah, and right now we still need to step in and see, and sort of use our intuition and measure, is this ad generating enough tears, or is this making me hungry enough? It is okay, and so if we are talking about efficiency, if we're talking about every single dollar I put in this Createch, am I able to generate the kind of emotions and storytelling capability for that $1 I put in? That is where it needs to be fine-tuned, I feel. Yeah.
And Ronnie, from the agency perspective, how do you guys on the creative side use creative technology?
Well, there is the sort of, the YouTubes and Facebooks and, Daily Motions of the world who allow us to sort of go in. So there's that sense of things. I think there's also the internal tools. So I'll go back to what you said and what the earlier session talked about, which was, I think, the biggest requirement for agencies to fully come on board in that sort of Createch world is just simplicity, right? There's a lot of stuff out there. Stepping into a creative agency, from the media agency side, you realize that, people are not going to engage with a lot of, multiple platforms, multiple logins, multiple sort of ways of looking at tech. So I think it's almost one of those things where as you start to get towards more of that, technology enabling humans, you'll start to see, the creative side coming more on board to get those signals. Like where are people? What sort of context are they in? What sort of locations are they in? How do I get that in one sort of one sort of dashboard, one sort of portal where I can start to understand them in a better way? Not that agencies don't do that, but right now they do it through conversations with people, or they do it with mass research. Technology can really simplify by shortening the time to figuring out who should I speak to, what should I ask them, what sort of cultures am I trying to investigate. So there's elements and there's movements towards using more tech, but if you really want it to sort of become commonplace across the creative world, it is really about simplification, right? How do you get it into one place? So Omnicom has Omni, which does that to a certain extent. And the more it gets simplified, the more creatives come on board and creative planners come on board. But the more it is sort of disparate and multiple sort of tools, you're going to get a lot of rejection. So it is human behavior change at the end of the day, right? For the creatives, right?
Yeah, of course. I do want to delve into that more. You've mentioned a couple of times. Obviously, it's fascinating that you are former media strategist moving into a creative strategy role. The reason being TWA want to try to, there's long been talk, I'm ex-agency myself, the challenge of media agencies and creative agencies working together, the collaboration. They often didn't want to work together and would have lots of arguments. I'm not saying that they were heated arguments, but it was always very annoying. And then every creative you get would be a cut-down version of the TVC that they used. And are we beyond that? It feels like a massive step that you, as a media strategist, are being brought into a creative environment. What changes are you hoping to elicit? Like, what are the things that they want to get from you and your expertise in the media planning and strategy world?
Well, I mean, look, it's a 32-year divorce that they're trying to now solve for. And in those 32 years, different languages. The same word means different things. So if you're not in the same building, like the word consumer journey, it means many different things to everybody in this room, right? So while you're communicating it's a consumer journey, the person on the other side, so when I was saying consumer journey as a media person, the person on the other side has a completely different takeaway, right? So that was my first realization, sort of sitting inside a creative agency, talking to the planners daily, in a daily sort of fashion. So the role I'm in is essentially partnering up with a lifelong creative strategist and just mash ourselves together, lots of awkward moments where we realize that...
Sounds ugly.
Yeah, lots of awkward moments in a nice way, where I realize I don't understand what he's saying. He realizes he doesn't understand what I'm saying. I realize I don't know anything that he does, and vice versa. And just sort of figuring out what are the joins, right, of where there's a common language, where the understanding of what we're doing is common as well. And it's not like integration hasn't been attempted. You've had the pitch team integration at holding group level, but you still have different name cards. People still sit in different buildings, mostly. You have the holding group unification under one P&L, but still you've got the different brand names, different sort of name cards that everybody has. Those are good attempts, but if those had worked, this question wouldn't be an existent question. So for me, this is the next type of integration, which is literally put media people, media strategists, creative strategists together. My role is to just, let people know what I know, educate them, train them, and also then obviously figure out what is a common language of planning, right? That needs to happen moving forward because the world's changing too quickly, right? Creative without data, tech, and media is just messages that nobody cares about, right?
It's just what marketing teams used to be called the colouring in club. So there's nothing else to inform what if they're doing a good job or not. They're just, this looks pretty. Let's put it out there and see how it goes. Yeah, that's interesting. We're running out of time, but I do want to ask you kind of a final question of kind of what for you. You've all come from different places. You've all got different experiences when it comes to creative and data technology. For example, Dailymotion, I know that you have 4 key pillars in your business, 2 of which, one is data and one is creativity. That feels like a kind of a very big forward step in really kind of planting a flag and saying, this is how important these 2 things are for us. What are the 3 key things? I mean, like, don't waffle on, just a couple of words here and there about kind of what the most important aspect of bringing together data and creativity with the goal of creative transformation, what those things look like. Judson, I'm going to come to you first.
So if I were to measure whether my creative is effective or not, I would want to measure how engaged a consumer is, which therefore leads into attention matrix, stuff like that. And so data for me, and I'm not sure how evolved it is in Singapore, and I would like to try, is to be able to, even if I buy out-of-home bus stop ads, even if I do door drop flyers, right? Data for me is to be able to see and track how people look at my ad, where their eyeballs are at. So overseas, I do know that it's quite advanced already. In Singapore, I think we're trying to do so. So data for me is one, to be able to segment all my users, the 24 different segments, then telling me what they want, and then I put out the creatives, and then at the very final step, let me know whether the creatives are doing the job for me or not. And so as Foodpanda tries digital and non-digital, the challenge over there is on the non-digital side, in able to tell us in real time, or at least every single day, right, how our non-digital buys are doing for us.
And that's where digitalization needs to play a role in non-digital stuff. Absolutely, that makes sense. Interesting. Bishoy.
I would say that the user, like it's very hard today to capture user attention, and you don't have a lot of time when you deliver your ad to be able to get that attention and for the user to actually see and hear and feel. You talked about the tiers, like really feel like what is your messaging and what you wanna say. So what we do and what we try to do is really leverage data to be able to predict and to give signals and information to the brand about this is the amount of time you will have to deliver your message. This is the best way you can deliver your message on this medium or on this type of publishers, on this type of context. So we'll try to leverage all that data that we have and help them predict accurately where and when they should deliver that message. And we believe that this is our role as a video platform to help the brands reach that.
Excellent. And finally, Ronnie, over to you.
3 things you said, right?
Did I say 2 or 3?
3.
Yeah. So you have to give me 3.
All right. So there's simplification. I'm going to steal 2 of them from the earlier presentation. Right. Simplification, absolutely required. It's too complex. Entire ecosystem out there. Nobody understands what's happening. Right. So simplification is absolutely required so that more people come on board. And the more we go towards that technology enabling humans, in terms of every product that all of you are building out, awesome. Integration. Right. More and more, it's a requirement to get different skill sets together, like the guy whose name I'm forgetting who built that observatory or whatever. But absolutely bring those separate skill sets together, let them sit, let them figure out how do we start to join this entire world of data, tech, creativity together. And the third one, I think, is experimentation. Comes down to, how do you use data to start experimenting with different approaches. Currently experimentation is happening through your TikTok creators, through your Instagram creators, through your YouTube and Daily Motion creators. They're really out there experimenting with the methods and the mechanisms of how we keep attention, how we get people to stay on and, actually do things. From a marketing perspective, there's agencies that have to experiment, but there's also a little bit of a requirement on marketers to allow for that. There's too often you have the process where you sign off on every single detail of every single ad, which means you only go into production when you have an absolutely final product, and you have A/B testing. You can never do A/B testing properly, right? Because you just have everything signed off. So allow for experimentation in both how the agencies work, but also how you're sort of working, if you're a marketer, how you're working with your agency. So yeah, so simplification, integration, experimentation.
Excellent. What a way to end. I think the key takeout here is we need to understand how we can measure tiers. Thank you very much, my panelists. Please have a chat with them. It's been a really fascinating conversation. I know, for example, Daily Motion, they've got actual real-time ads they can show you at their stand, so please go take a look at that. Thank you so much to Ronnie, Bishoy, and Judson. A round of applause.